Hey, Paul.
Hey Fab, how you doing?
Good yourself?
Good. I'm good. Except for my
Cool.
cold.
Except for your cold.
So you might hear me blow my nose and hack once in a while.
Please put yourself on mute if you
I
blow your
will.
nose.
I will. You might see me. You might see me hack and blow my nose.
Fair enough. All right. So today I want to talk about something that's probably that I've been thinking a lot about. Actually, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I know we've talked about this directly or indirectly a long, long time ago. So, over 100 episodes ago. Um, and it's product demos. Obviously, a lot of type of industries have demos, to demonstrate how a product works. Um, just to narrow down the conversation, I'd like to focus a bit more on software demos. So anything that's software as a service. So you're selling a software online, like obviously we talk about HubSpot a lot, but any software that you buy. Um, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it is although this demo seems to be the cornerstone of every SaaS sales process, there's always a demo stage. Um, I find it's kind of the complete opposite of everything that you talk about, but a lot of sales leaders, like when I talk to sales leaders at companies, like talk about, which is like asking questions and understanding pain and understanding the impact that you're going to have on the business, like all the stuff we talk about. Um, and yeah, the product demo is like the complete opposite of that, right? Because, and I think there's a few things that are at play. And these are all things we've discussed on past episodes, but, there's a lot of emphasis when you talk about training on product expertise, and the demo kind of triggers that, right? Because the thinking that you have is like, I need to show the product. So salespeople like right away go into product expert mode. And because it's the cornerstone, it's usually the first stage. It's also usually marketing, right? When on the company website they'll say schedule a demo,
Yeah.
right? So the salesperson the prospect, excuse me, is expecting a demo, not a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird component, I find, and I think it's obviously I'm oversimplifying, but it's one of the biggest challenges sales or account executives, anybody who's running like kind of the sales, anything opportunity onwards, have, because it's so weird. I don't know how else to put it. It's everything that we don't talk about, but it's the cornerstone of everything. So I wanted to kind of have, and we didn't really structure this conversation, but so I wanted to maybe just open it up a bit. I wanted to have your point of view. I definitely have some ideas too, but I'm more the ops person, you're more the salesperson, so I wanted to kind of have your point of view on product demos, what their role is, how to conduct them, and stuff like that.
So great question. In and of its own, let's talk about product demos on their own for a second. To me, a product demo is the most marketing part of a sales job. In other words, you're like the mini website, right? But you're going in depth, and you're like a one-on-one website, talking and interacting with your potential client. So a demo is exactly this: it's a demonstration. You're not asking questions. You're not interacting a lot. You're speaking. You're doing a presentation. Now, and you're right. A lot of times you go onto a website and the website says schedule a product demo, which is
Because
good, right?
nobody wants to talk to sales. I get it. I understand why that
Yeah,
call to action is there.
but there too,
But
if you
yeah,
schedule the product demo, you obviously have an interest in the product, which is great, right?
yeah.
So if we talk about that in and of its own, how to do an effective product demo is very much, I think, boils down to a presentation. So how are you doing an effective presentation? To me, you can't do an effective presentation unless you have a little bit of information on the person's goals, right? Particularly if you're doing a one-on-one. So if let's say for a second we pretend that the demo doesn't exist, what you're doing is you're asking questions, you're being consultative, you're going in depth, you're finding out what the pain points are, and then in your presentation slash demo, you're presenting the features and the benefits of your product to enable your client to achieve their objectives. So unless you're doing an amazing job on your website and asking your clients like 20 or 100 questions to predetermine, and they've said everything to you, and you're calling them up and say, hey George, you've said that you've got a problem with this, problem with that, you're trying to help this, you're trying to fix this, you're trying to change the world here, you're trying to change the world there, yada yada yada. Well, here's how we can help you. And that in your demo you're addressing all those issues, then that's great. Honestly, that's good, because you're addressing the pains and points of your client. But if you're just doing a blind product demo, then you have to see it as a marketing or an ad. You have to see it as a marketing tool, an ad. You've got to, you've got to expect that response from the potential client. If you know nothing about them, they're just gonna say, "Hey, thank you very much for the demo, George or Paul. It's a great demo. I'm happy you did it to me. We'll get back to you."
Yeah.
You don't know anything about them. If you don't know anything about them, you don't know what your product's going to do with them. So,
And I have to interrupt you because what you said is really amazing.
well, thanks, Fab.
No, because it really structures, and obviously everybody has different types of products, right? Like some people, some companies are selling like a $15 a month subscription, which obviously will have a very different sales process than if you're selling a $15,000 a month product, right? Like there's different types of software out there, and that just goes to show how important it is to craft your sales process by taking into account customers' expectations and customer journey, which is an episode that we posted not too long ago. Because I really liked what you said, that if you're going in blind, you have to assume that it's marketing, and so that really dictates who has to handle the product demo, right? Because if you don't have a choice, right? If you have a low cost item, you don't have you're probably going into a lot of volume and stuff like that. Your product demo is going to have to be very early on, very marketing y, quote unquote, and maybe you don't want your account executives to handle that part, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
want like an SDR or BDR to just run a vanilla product demo, and then at the end of the demo is like, was that of interest? Would you like to speak to somebody to get more detail on how this could work for you and solve your business? And then the sales
But if you're
process
doing
would
that, you
start.
may as well have a pre-recorded product demo, which is,
Right. Yeah. And which is why a lot of companies do, they do. I think maybe if you don't want to go that way, like having a person there still allows you to answer a few
yeah.
questions, like, hey, does it do ABC? Is it SOC 2 compliant or whatever? Something that you might not put in your video. But this to me is such a great insight, right? Like that if you have to go blind based on how your marketing is set up and your client expectations, then assume it's still part of marketing. The demo is still part of marketing and not your sales process. That's such a great insight.
Yeah, but, or it is, because you may expect your salesperson to perform in a sales manner after the demo, but if it's just a blind demo, well, then it's marketing, it's advertising. To me,
Yeah.
sales, and you and I have talked about this a lot, but just a little parentheses here. Sales is about discovering what your client needs to be able to help them achieve your objectives. That's to me a very brief, small definition of sales. To me, marketing is someone who you're trying to reach out through various tools to interest them potentially in your product. Of course, you're going to target it to certain segments or types or whatever, but you don't know that much about them. You just know that they fit within the segment, and you're creating a form of marketing, advertising that will appeal to them and hopefully have them want to reach out to you somehow. So
Yeah.
they are the same thing. Sales and marketing. We've talked about this too. Sales and marketing. It's like the bone and the tendon. At one point, it's neither bone, it's not a tendon.
Yeah.
It's a bit of both. They do different things, but they work together. But if you really want to do an effective product demo, you got to tell yourself up front, what are my goals here? Am I trying to
Right.
sell something at the end of my demo, or am I just trying to interest people in my product?
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah. You're right. And I mean, like, I liked how and obviously, like, we can tweak definitions, but I liked your general insight. Well, not insight there, but the little high level definition, right? Marketing is about creating awareness and demand, and that the tendon part, like the middle part where tendon bone
It's neither a tendon nor
is
bone.
where it's in flux, right? Like that that sales to marketing,
Yeah.
marketing to sales handover is very much business dependent, right?
Yeah.
And I completely agree. Like your product demo could be part of marketing, and it doesn't have to be sales just because salespeople have product knowledge, right? Like it's not necessarily a thing, right? Even if you don't want to pre-record a demo, right? For maybe you have some valid reasons too. Maybe you have a high enough price point that it's worth having somebody speak to the client early on to do some maybe initial discovery and through a demo. But yeah, maybe that should be run by your marketing team or somebody on the marketing team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And again, it depends on, I think you and I both know there are a million different types of product demos.
Yeah,
And there are probably a million different subcategories that we could call our product demos. And
yeah,
to use the tendon and bone example again, some product demos probably lean a lot more towards marketing, and some
yeah.
product demos probably lean a lot more towards sales. So you have to decide, what is the purpose of what I am calling a product demo? Am I trying to create more awareness? Am I trying to create comfort for a potential client who'd be using a very complex SaaS? That's a lot of product demos are that, right? So you're, let's use HubSpot. You're changing from one CRM to HubSpot. Well, you might want a product demo on the different features because it's a big decision. We're using, I'm going to make you laugh here. We're using Salesforce and we want to move to HubSpot. Well, you're going to tell me, well, that's easy, but that's a lot.
Do you even need a demo for that? Salesforce instance.
so so effectively, you're gonna, what's the purpose of that demo? What's it trying to do? Is it trying to explain something very complex that I want my potential client to understand, or is it doing a sales job? Because those are different things,
Mhm.
And if I, let's say I'm, yeah, I really do want to buy HubSpot and stuff. I just want to understand anymore. Can I get, can I get a product demo? Well, you've then known about your client. Your client's interested. They're probably going to come on board with you. They just want to see how it's going to work and how it's going to fit in. So your product demo is not always at the same stage of your sales process. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm going into some dangerous territory there.
No, but
But
it is right because I mean it's funny you mentioned that because I was recently on a product demo, which with excuse me a piece of software that is more expensive, right? Like probably in the 5K a month type of range, right, of
okay,
software. And so therefore some high touch element, right? Like so salespeople involved from the get go. And the first conversation uh, they had was all discovery, right? Like they're like, hey, yeah, we'll spend a few minutes at the end showing you kind of like some of the base thing, but first, kind of need to understand,
yeah,
what you're hoping to accomplish and blah 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 blah.
yeah,
And then they ran through 5 minutes at the end, like, hey, but here's kind of what it looks like, just so you have an idea of
yeah,
visually what the software looks like. But let's schedule some time next week. Now that I have more insight, I can kind of tailor the demo to what you're hoping to accomplish, right? And I thought that was kind of really well
yeah,
done. There
yeah,
was no sales pushing at all.
yeah,
So I mean, granted that was more of a warm lead that came in, but still, like I think you really do. And so there, the demo is like really the I know you think in milestones when you think of a sales process, but the more that second milestone, right? Like the first one is just understanding, is this a good
yeah,
fit, right? Like
yeah,
if you're not generating enough revenue to buy a software that for it to be worth buying a software that's $5,000 a month, like I'm not going to spend time tailoring the demo. It's not right for you, right?
yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So you need to
and
have some discovery
yeah,
elements, and unless your demo is pre-recorded and it doesn't cost you anything, and you just send it out to people, well, then that's a whole different story, right?
yeah, but then I would argue that even that is
That's
this part
marketing.
of is this a valid place to put it? Do we need
Yeah,
to have a pre-canned, because if your demo has to be tailored because every person can use it differently or highlight different parts, then a pre-canned won't work, right?
won't work exactly. Yeah,
Because then they'll get bored if you start with function A that
yeah,
I don't need. I'm going to tune out, right? But
yeah. They'll
function
get
B,
bored, or
which
they
I would
just,
need
yeah, they won't
later.
see the relevance to their reality. Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally agree with you. Yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
and you're right there. And it's interesting because we're always talking in the look, 95% of what we do, you and I, if not 99%, is in the B2B world, right? So there are some, I think, just to again put a little parentheses out there. I think there are probably some product demos in the B2C world that probably follow different rules, right? If you're introducing
Yeah.
a new product or a new way of doing things, and probably sometimes too in the B2B world, right? The first CRM, or the first automation tool that started automation of whatever,
Yeah.
that product demo might even be opening the eyes of a client to something they've never actually expected, like, oh wow,
Right.
this is so cool. And that again, that's a different purpose. But if you're selling something that that's been out there, that people know about, whatnot, in a B2B world, I personally believe that your product demo is part of once it's part of the sales department, it's explaining something that will help your client achieve an objective, and you as a salesperson should be aware of that before you do your product demo.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's so critical, and the example, and I know I've given this example a few times, but earlier on in my career, when I was working in marketing at a software SaaS company, um, I would sit in on sales calls and demos for once in a while to just see how things were going and to get insights from there. And I'll always remember this one call where it was a more complex part, like piece of software, so it did need like some sales approach, but it was run in the typical fashion, right? Ask 5 questions at the beginning and then run into your demo, your vanilla demo, right? Which was horrible, because I remember being sitting on this one call, and the salesperson was doing what they were trained to do, ask a few questions at the beginning and then just demo the same old platform regardless of what's answered. And the person was clearly saying, we need function B, right? I'm not going to give too much detail, but I need function B. And he's like, great, 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 perfect, yeah, cool, cool. Then he goes into the thing and he ends like a 45-minute demo with that function B, and
Yeah.
I'm like, after that, like, the client hung up, or the prospect hung up after or left the demo, as intended. And then he asked me, "So how did that go?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was interesting. You have a good handle of the product, but they did ask for function B, and you waited all the way to the end to talk about it."
What did he say?
So was that?
What did he say? I was trained to
He's
do it
like,
that
oh
way.
yeah, no. He's like, oh yeah, you're right, like, but that's why I think it's so important that if sales does need to be involved in this product demonstration, then they need to have some sort of insight, even if your product isn't customizable per se, right? Like, you can't activate or deactivate certain things. At least they know how to build. And here I'll give kudos to Salesforce. Like, I don't know if they still do it, but I spoke to a rep from Salesforce a long time ago, so it might have changed since. But they were trained to story tell their demos, right? So they would have a first conversation like, "Hey, what are you expecting to do with Salesforce?" Blah 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 blah,
Yeah,
and then they would story map like their whole for the subsequent call, not on
yeah,
the call, and they would be like, "Hey, well, you were hoping to help salespeople manage their pipeline better. Let's say, well, this is how it would happen. You have a lead that comes in here, then the salesperson clicks here and does this, and then so the person could be completely fully involved in
yeah,
their future reality." And I found that super interesting, right? And so it's not a matter of like activating or deactivating functionalities, but it is a matter of storytelling, right? Like, this is
yeah,
what
yeah.
your reality is going to look like. If sales needs to be involved, I agree with you. If sales doesn't need to be involved because it's a simple product, it's low touch, then pre-record it or have like some junior,
Yeah.
SDR run through a
Then it's a
vanilla demo.
marketing tool. But
Yeah,
you said something very interesting that I totally agree with, and it's a good point. Um, Using storytelling, there's something about the human mind that connects better with the story.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if you were there, but you and I had both been on a training at one point, and they asked you to remember 25 words, and they incorporated in a story, and it was way easier to remember the 25 words, right? So
right.
if you're giving a demo, and you're telling a story that relates to the client, well, it's going to be a lot better for sure. So
Yeah.
in the actual, if we if we for once stick to the title of our podcast, and how to conduct an effective product demo, I think, um, I think storytelling is huge. How to relate it to your client in their world. So that's very, very important. Assuming, of course, that we've talked a lot about the setup, we've talked a lot about what's going on, but once you are in the product demo, and you've just talked about your budding until the end to talk about characteristic B. If you found information out in the beginning of your conversation, and you realize, well, okay, this person only needs half my demo, the other part's irrelevant to them, well, be flexible to readjust that. And I totally agree with you. Make it as relevant as possible to the client, and of course use storytelling. So hey, when you'll be doing this, you'll do that, you're related to their reality, rather than talking about functions and features in your language. Use their language. So
Yeah.
100%, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, you're right. I mean, let's bring it back to the title. And I think you summarized it well. Is like how to conduct an effective product demo is like, first you need to understand where that demo fits in your sales process, right? If it has to be early on, and my rule of thumb would be if it's a low touch product, or then have it as a pre-recorded demo. If there needs to be somebody there just to answer a few questions or to qualify, because it could potentially be more complicated of a purchase, have like an SDR run the demo. But the goal of the demo is to just determine whether they're qualified or interested, and then have a subsequent conversation. Whereas if the salesperson needs to be involved because it is a more complex purchase, then the demo can be first milestone in your sales process. Like it has to be a subsequent milestone in
Yeah, and
there.
just to throw a wrench in everything we've been saying,
Nice.
I would also say that if you've had your introductory call, you've done your confirmation, you've done your discovery, you've discovered a ton of stuff. Your demo can also be a confirmation of the discovery, right? So it could
Yeah.
be your third milestone in that sense, so that you're really you're talking to the points. You've created a demo about what's important to the client. I mean, that's kind of interesting too, right? So if you think about it, I've discovered a whole whack of things, and I've built a demo to show you how this is going to fit in your reality. So
Yeah.
instead of just presenting, you're using a demo. I like that, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know. Is that something you've thought about, or are you always seeing it this way? I know I just kind of in my cold infested brain, it just kind of exploded.
I haven't seen that much, but yeah, definitely. And again, it goes with the more complex sales, right? Like
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't encourage that. And I'm sure there's software out there that would allow you, to maybe tailor it more automatically if it is a lower touch, right? But
Yeah,
you could even consider having, 3 or 4 versions of your demo, right? And so when somebody fills out a form to watch a pre-recorded demo, they like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, see how to do X, or how
yeah,
would I do Y, or how would I do Z, and then they see a different version of the demo. That could be interesting. I
yeah,
think there's a lot of possibilities out there. I think we need to step away from the plain old. Okay, now we're gonna have a demo, and then
yeah,
we can have the real conversation afterwards.
yeah,
Like I think if that has to be the case, then you need to be very aware
yeah,
of that, and see where you fit that in within your sales process.
yeah.
Um,
Total
because
brain fart here. You just made me think. Theoretically, even in I don't know. Tell me what you think. Maybe maybe it's my crazy brain, but like even in consulting or in recruiting and what I do, I'm thinking there could be a demo that is a story. You could
yeah,
actually build some kind of demo, say, look, this is what's going to happen. This is the process.
yeah,
And this is a quick demo of what's going to happen. We're not talking about a software; it's a very different type of demo, but
yeah,
it is something that you could readjust. Like even in your world, you could say, well, look, here's what happens when here's a demo of what happens. This can happen, that's going to happen.
yeah.
Following for us very much towards the end of that discovery and into the confirmation, related to the presentation. Anyways, that was just my
Yeah,
rant.
no, no, definitely. And I mean, there are companies out there, I'm sure even software, that do like these kind of explainer videos. And this is the process we're going to follow, and blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah, and so on and so forth. I think, and if you have a more, higher volume consulting business, like I still feel personally that I need to be involved and see what they need, and every project is different, so to speak.
Mhm.
But if you have a more of a high volume, I could see like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, oh well, I'm looking for a new HubSpot account. Well, this is how we run onboarding. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah,
Are you interested in talking more? Yeah, great, click
yeah,
and we'll talk. Type of thing. Same with you, right? Like, hey, I'm looking to hire a salesperson. Well, here's how my process works. If you're interested, let's schedule some call. And then they watch
yeah,
like a 1 or 2 minute explainer of your process.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that could be really interested, because you kind of get rid of those tire kickers in a way, right? Like people that are just curious and stuff like that. Because that's the other thing. And I know we're coming to the end of the show, or this episode, but that's another thing that I noticed demos do, right? Sometimes they trigger excitement, right? Let's say you're buying a new car, and now cars these days have all these gadgets and stuff like that, right? And you're not really thinking of it, and then your salesperson is showing you this car does XYZ. You're like, oh my god, that's so cool. Product demos can do that too. Like, oh, I
yeah,
never thought of using AI to generate my blog post.
yeah,
But it can be very distracting, because all of a sudden they get excited about a functionality that's really a nice to have in their
yeah,
case. Maybe for
yeah,
somebody else it's a must have, but in their case it's a nice to have, and it distracts them. So uh, being so then again, depending on where your demo has to be, you can take that into account, right?
yeah,
Like if it has to
yeah,
be pre-recorded, is like, you know you want to schedule some time, and could be like, hey, is there anything in there that interests you that you didn't think of? And then the salesperson can be aware of that,
yeah.
right? That this is maybe a distracting shiny object distraction type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, don't expect your. I guess what we're saying, the conclusion for me is don't expect the demo to close your sale, and
No.
really understand what your demo does and what the purpose of the demo is. And I think what I've seen is a lot of people think, well, the demo is the heart of the thing. You've got to be a great pitch man or a great pitch
Yeah.
woman, and it all happens in the demo. Well, no,
No, it
it's
doesn't.
the whole
Yeah.
process. It's part of the process, and make sure you understand what it does. Right.
Yeah.
It's like brushing
Absolutely.
your teeth. If you if you eat a ton of bad food for you, and you're doing a whole bunch of stuff, and you're brushing your teeth with mud, well, the fact you're brushing your teeth is not really going to help. So your demo is not going to save everything, no matter what you do. I ate all these sugar bagels and donuts and candies, but I brushed my teeth. Uh, so
Awesome.
I don't know.
Cool. Well, this has
Is
been
that a
really
good
interesting, because it is very tied
Okay.
to a lot of my reality. So thank you for sharing your insights. I think this to me was a really interesting episode.
Yeah, it was interesting to me too. And sorry, I'm a little goofy. I'm not even on cold medicine. Maybe I should be. That'll be even
Oh my
goofier.
gosh. Imagine that. If you
So,
were on cold medicine right now, how goofy this episode would have been.
yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, Paul.
Bye bye.